Let me do a little bit of an opening statement.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We should be good now.
We should be good now.
Are we good now?
Yeah, I'm going to let you take off there, Tom, and then you reiterate to him early.
It's part of your agenda to silence me.
No, stop.
I'm just kidding.
Maybe it was God doing something. I mean,
yes.
Who knows? But
Tom, go.
Says we can't hear it.
Can I call you Joe, Mr. Early?
Phil,
or Joseph, or what should I? Phil. Sorry.
Phil. Yeah, it's Phil.
You and I apologize. Phil, you and I agree, at least in theory, the First Amendment exists to separate church and state and to keep the tentacles of government from reaching into people's choice to be part of organized religion or to make their organized religion no religion. It's at that point that you and I stop in agreement, because I believe the most fundamental way that the government does that is by not levying taxes on places of worship or on religious institutions. And this is something that's been part of our fabric since we were founded as a nation. It has been held up numerous times in the courts. The Supreme Court has weighed in starting in the early 1800s, upholding the validity of tax-exempt status for religious institutions in order to preserve the First Amendment. This has gone through different iterations. One of the most famous cases was in 1970. The Berger Court ruled overwhelmingly that was the case. It was reiterated in 2000. So you've had conservative, liberal courts, as it were, and you've had this as basically as part of our history. When this country was founded on people seeking religious freedom, this was one of the main ways that they wanted to ensure that there be a free church and a free state. And that is to keep the tentacles of government out of the pocketbooks of churches and houses of worship. I do not want the federal government in the pulpit or the pew or the pocketbook of any house of worship, regardless of religion, regardless of their, whether it's Christian, Hindu, atheist, rationalist, Muslim, etc., because I value the Constitution. That is my conviction.
Okay, Early.
I mean, why would it take so long for these exemptions to come into play? Like we were already in the 20th century at the time these codes existed, by the time they were introduced. If it was the framers' intention that the government not tax these churches, then it became an issue.
Well, I disagree with that. Historically, that's not accurate. In McCullough versus Maryland in 1819, Justice Marshall, writing for the majority, said the power to tax involves the power to destroy, and it upheld the religious exemption, the tax exemption for religious entities. When you look at this at the 1700s, you had in the late 1700s in the United States, you had two very important documents that were written. You had the Constitution of the United States being written, and you also had the Westminster Confession of Faith that was written. The Westminster Confession was borrowed and brought over from England in the mid-1600s. And I can read it to you, or I can just summarize it for you. Basically, the religious history at the time in England was that, you had the state church, you had the Anglican church, which was basically the state church, and then you had the Puritans and the Reformed who rebelled against that and wanted religious freedom. But yet, what they kept in England was in regarding it, and I'm reading from the Westminster Confession in 1646, based on the civil magistrate. The civil magistrate may not assume the administration of word and sacraments, but it is their duty to take order that unity and peace be preserved in the church, that the truth of God be kept pure and entire, that all blasphemies and heresies be suppressed, all corruptions and abuses in worship and discipline prevented or reformed, and all the ordinances of God duly settled, administered, and observed. For the better preserving and the effecting whereof, the civil magistrate has the power to call synods, be present at them, and to provide whatsoever is transacted in them to be according to the mind of God. So just to summarize that, they're basically saying that church and state are one, and that the government can legislate what goes on in the church. In the late 1700s, when the Constitution was being written, you had Reformed in the United States, and they brought the Westminster Confession over, but they modified the civil magistrate section for their churches to read this way: civil magistrates may not assume to themselves the administration of word or sacrament. It is not the duty of civil magistrates to rest in such a manner that all ecclesiastical persons enjoy full, free, and unquestioned liberty. It is the duty of civil magistrates to protect the person and good name of all people, in such an effectual manner that no person be suffered either upon pretense of religion or of infidelity to offer any indignity, violence, abuse, injury, etc. The wording could not be more diverse. In England, you had this document basically giving credence for the government to be the church. In America, you have us saying we don't want the government within a country mile of the church. And therefore, the First Amendment to the Constitution says Congress shall make no law regarding the establishment of a religion or the prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So I disagree with you that it's a modern thing. It's been part of our history. McCulloch v. Maryland in 1819, the Walls versus Tax Commission of the City of New York, 1970, the Burger Court on down. It's been legislated over and over. It's been brought to the courts, and the courts have overwhelmingly and unanimously sided with the Constitution, protecting places of worship from taxation.
The court cases you're citing aren't specifically to do with the church and the state. It's just McCulloch, Maryland, I believe, was the necessary and proper clause, gave the federal government implied powers, or argued against it, their ability to interfere with states' rights, correct? Like, I don't think that was having to do anything with the church.
Okay, so one of the things, so you fundamentally disagree about whether what the constitutional fathers sought when founding this country, and when it pertains to the church and government. And I think I agree to Tom's point that taxation is one of the most powerful tools that a government can use against any type of entity. Go ahead.
Let me ask you real quick. What about from like a moral or ethical standpoint? Like, churches are run like a business these days, right?
Okay, so
See that? Yeah.
Go ahead. What do you got on that, Hal? Because you've been quiet. Go ahead.
Well,
and then I'll answer your question.
Well, see, on I think it was last week's show with Josh. At the end, you were like, "So you're a fan of taxing the church?" So just to clear that up, I'm not a fan of taxing the church. My whole issue is the amount of money that the church takes in and is allowed to do so. I mean, you look at the parsonage allowance. Mm-hmm. There's no transparency there, so you've got pastors in $1 million homes.
All right.
You know, like Joel Osteen.
Okay.
The weird way that he went about not taking a salary anymore. I think in 2005 or somewhere in there, they stopped taking a cut from the church.
So,
but the church was still bringing in $89 million annually, and 1% of that was being spent on the church. $25 million of that was being spent to keep them on TV, which great advertising for all those Joel Osteen
the books,
self-help books.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, the dude's living in a $10 million mansion. So when I hear, yeah, well, they do good, they do a lot of charity work, I'm going to tell you, they're not, they're taking more home than is going to charity. And so I personally, I don't think that's a good institution.
Right.
They have gift shops. You don't have to, there's no transparency on what you're paying church employees. I don't know. I went to church when I was younger, and the idea of a church employee is crazy to me.
Ooh, that's.
I didn't think all of that was.
That's insane. That's not fair.
You know.
That's not fair.
I mean, okay, you have enough money to pay the pastor and the assistant pastors and everything else. My issue is when I look on TV and I see pastors flying around in Lear jets.
Yeah,
like these things
Creflo
that CEOs.
I'm about to address that. I was
$65 million
I'm
jet.
being civil. Look how. I'm sorry, I mislabeled you for labeling. I thought you expressly said you wanted to tax the church. I apologize.
I just think if you're going to legislate and shit, like, play ball. You
All
know,
right.
if that's, I don't like taxes, but that's the world that we live in right now. So you have this large chunk of money that's going untaxed, but also you've got politicians using it as a platform. I think that's, I don't know. I've got a problem with that.
I don't agree with a flat tax either.
Let Tom ask a question, and then I'm going to pose a question as well.
When you say this money isn't being taxed, what are we talking about?
As far as money that churches bring in through donations and so forth.
And who gives that money?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a choice.
Yeah, people give that money, and that money has been taxed 15 different ways. So do we really want to add another one?
I get what you're saying.
Tax them, Bill.
Parsonage allowances are taxed. So, and I know everybody loves to point at Joel Osteen, but the same
He's not the
parsonage allowance, the same parsonage allowance that the Creflo dollars and the what a name, right? That Creflo dollar and Joel Osteen is taking. Zeb's pastor is getting a parsonage allowance as well.
Mm-hmm.
Clergy of all faiths and no faith, and I know that sounds weird, but we can lump those in of a religious order, and it's valid to have a religion that your religion being a non-religion, but clergy are treated as both employed and self-employed.
They're protected
under the tax code, so they're doubly taxed. The only thing that the parsonage allowance does is it codifies, and this had to go through the court, and the Ninth Circuit Court, by all accounts, one of the most liberal courts in the country, actually codified the decent rule into law that states that the parsonage allowance can be that the parsonage allowance is only taxed at 15.3%. So you're still paying taxes. They're still paying taxes on whatever the value of that is. So if they live in a $1 million home, they're paying 15.3% of $1 million goes to the IRS for taxes. So the idea that these guys are skating by and not paying taxes is a myth. I'm not defending them, but
no.
We just have to put the facts on the table.
Yeah, I want to go back to a question early directly asked. Do you remember the question you asked me early?
Oh, how you feel about it from a moral or ethical standpoint?
Okay, so I'm going to address that now because I've let everybody had a chance.
Right.
So what I want to go to scripture right there. You know, what will it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? Morally, obviously, it's terrible. I think that's horrible. I also said in the Bible, surely I say to you, what you do unto the downtrodden, the least of these, my brother, you do unto me. Jesus was saying as that to himself. It's horrible. You know, it's terrible to people to run a racket, to take money. Yes, I don't think that. Do I think certain pastors are maybe abusing some powers, have found corruption? There's corruption everywhere. You can find corruption. But where I'll tell you that where you breed more corruption is when you put more government control on it. You know, what I would say is that the IRS is the one that is supposed to be in charge of keeping track of pastors that maybe do walk the line. It's what you say is lobbying for certain senators or whatever the case may be. If you want to say hate speech, whatever you want to say, then on an individual level, the IRS has the authority to confront that, and they don't because they're making money on the side too. I think states. I think the IRS is a joke. I think states should have the right to question whichever church you want to attack. What I'll say, when you say across the board that you want to tax the church, you destroy.
I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm not saying that.
So both of y'all have said we're not taxing the church.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just to jump in real quick, if we're quoting scripture, Jesus also said, "Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." Also, I think in Romans was let every person be in subjugation to the governing authorities. But as far as taxing the church goes, I'm not all about a flat tax. I'm just saying I am against these vulgar displays of wealth that we see in both the Catholic Church and in these mega churches, right? I think there should be some kind of cap where every dollar that they get, if you're having pay for prayer services and everything else, right, where these predatory pastors are clearly preying on vulnerable people for money, there should be some kind of government regulation there. That's all I'm saying.
What do you got on that, Tom?
Couldn't disagree more. And you know what? I hate predatory pastors just as much as the next person. But when you start wanting to use the government to root out what you think is moral and immoral, I have a problem with that, because the government has a way of defining morality that may be antithetical to my religion. I do not. We can't say we don't want the government to legislate morality and then turn around and say, boy, we wish the government would do something about Joel Osteen because we think he's a crook, or we want the government to do something about this person or that person because we think they're crooked. I just have a very real problem with that. We had, during the Democratic primary season, we had Beto O'Rourke saying that he would direct the IRS to strip the tax exemption of any church that spoke out against LGBTQ community, or any church that would refuse to perform a wedding ceremony for someone that was gay or lesbian or transgender, etc. Every single Democratic candidate said, not so fast, Beto. We can't go there. Everybody pounced on him and said, look, the law of the land is we will not infringe on the rights of free speech for places of worship. His sharpest critics and criticism came from Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg. So, if that many people, and if Republicans and Democrats all think this is a bad idea, I think there's something to that. Let me share just a brief scripture. So Samuel told all the words of the people to the people who are asking for a king. These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and daughters and appoint them to his chariots to be his horsemen. He will appoint for himself commanders of thousands, commanders of 50, to plow his ground, to reap his harvest, to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards. Gee, that sounds like the government. That we have been warned. And that's what they're doing. I don't want to ask them to do more than that. We've given our government enough sons. We've given the government enough of our vineyards. We've given the government enough of the fruits of our labor. I just don't see giving them any more.
I want to go back to. I also don't see a reason for the government to do anything to Joel Osteen. What I'm more upset about is you see this idea. I don't know. I can't speak for the entire nation, but I do know in the rural Southern Baptist Bible Belt type of churches, you hear of this attack on Christianity. You hear Islam is taking over. You have all of this going on in small churches. But at the same time, you have a multi-billion-dollar industry that is based on that religion, specifically Christianity. I'm not in favor of really any religion, so just clearing that up. My problem is these are not good people. These are not good institutions. And
you have to clear up when you say institutions. You have to clear up, be kind of specific, because it's easy to blanket it. You know what I'm saying? So
I get what you're saying.
That's where we got confused earlier, but I thought it was tax the church altogether. No. So I just want to be sure and clear what institutions, what are evil and who is bad. Because I think to Tom's point, to what he's saying is that it's easy for the government to manipulate you to think something's bad when it might not be bad.
Sure, but at the same time, you've got churches asking for donations. Donate to this, donate to these children, do this. But these are millionaires asking to do this. It's no different than like Sarah McLachlan on the ASPCA commercials, really. It's like, hey, for just a little bit more, this kid might
might survive if
we're gonna go
you pay an extra
North
dollar.
Sentinel Island. You remember that? I think his name was John Chow. He was murdered, trying to go over on a mission trip, and rightfully so. Leave these people alone. They're indigenous people. They've been like this.
Where's this
forever? North Sentinel Island.
It was,
but they killed him, and then they like here in America they were like, what a martyr. And the reason those people don't want them there is because the last time that we went over there, we brought a bunch of fucking disease. These people were dying. We almost killed them. Leave them alone. You're not doing God's work by spreading Christianity to people that hunt fish with spears.
I would disagree.
Why? How can you disagree?
Why would you disagree with that?
Why? Because it's so much more than, as you would say, that Christians are just out to try to convert people. So of course Christians want to convert other Christians. I would love for you to come to church, but I'm not going to push you to this. Let me finish my point.
Don't kill people.
I'm not killing anybody.
I know you're not. But he was potentially going to.
So my point is this. Is that it's easy to attack mission trips and attach missions abroad altogether because it's not looking in the context of the good that a lot of the churches do. Like something simple that my church does is shoebox ministries.
I know, but I'm not talking about local small churches. I'm talking about the figurehead of Christianity in America.
That's not the figurehead of Christianity. The figurehead of Christianity is Jesus. The figurehead of Christianity is Jesus.
You can't just distance yourself from something just because you don't agree with it, when that is recognized as Christianity in this country. The way you believe might be totally different, but these are tens of thousands of people in what's Lakewood? What was it before? I think it was the Houston Rockets or whatever. That was their home arena, and now it's a church.
Right.
Okay.
That's crazy.
What do you got on
What's
that?
tragic to me? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. Go ahead. You got
Just
it.
one more.
What's tragic to me is that what's tragic to me about what's going on in modern times is not that religion is dying in the developed world. Like my opinion on that is whatever. But the fact that religion is exploding in third world countries, in places where people really need to take the initiative, it's just reinforcing the subjugation and the shittiness of.
So you see the church as being a part of colonialism, or
100%. Like that's the end result of our colonialism. Like we left Africa and South America with this idea that, oh, you know what? I'll have a shitty life, but I'm gonna die and live forever in paradise, right?
No,
I might as well just accept. I might as well just accept this horrible living situation that I'm in. And as far as it goes, the role of government, as far as church and state and everything else goes, and taxing the church, I simply think that the role of government in the situation should be to protect the needy from the greedy, to protect vulnerable people from other people that would prey on them. Because we have these elderly people like giving away their life savings. Should we just stand by and let that happen? I don't know. I don't think so.
Tom, what do you got on that?
Well, the alternative is, and look, I think it's a terrible thing for this fictional elderly person to empty their checking account to give to Joel Osteen. I also think it's a bad idea for this fictional elderly person to empty their checking account to give to their idiot nephew. But that's none of my business, nor should it be any of my business unless there's some sort of demonstrable cause where someone should step in or could step in. This is a free society. If people want to give Joel Osteen their money, that's up to them. And let's remember something. We got to put some facts out here. Less than 5% of American Christians attend megachurches. 2 out of 3 churches in this country have less than 50 people in them. So anytime you're talking about the Joel Osteens and the easy targets, okay, we're also going to be talking about the guy who or lady who is struggling to keep this little tiny country church afloat, or you're talking about this synagogue, or you're talking about this house church, or you're talking about whatever, fill in the blank. You're talking about the Rationalist Society that meets as a club after hours. So
sure, leave them alone. I have no
I don't
issue
see
with that.
them asking for money. Those aren't the churches that are asking.
Then we can't.
Money.
We don't get to decide. Again, what I'm hearing.
And actually, and monetary problems is an issue for small. So you're saying just caps?
So the solution is to redistribute the wealth.
So caps is what you're saying. But
help all the struggling churches. Take the money from these select few.
If that's what you're about,
and spread it out. I'm all about it.
Help.
I do want to challenge the idea that mission trips just put off a continued colonial mindset, or that it's a it's a continuation of that, or maybe even some type of accidental racist narrative there. What I would say is that you got guys like Sam Childers. I don't know if you're familiar with him, former outlaw biker, became a preacher, was actually took his time to go to South Sudan and protect kids during a civil war and, preached Christ. So, I mean, what I see is he's primarily there to preach Christ. He's primarily there to help build communities and try to do what he can in the time frame that he can, and then he also takes up arms and protects them. I just think that's a good example that mission trips are not just about trying to keep people downtrodden, like, well, you're going to, when you die, you'll be with Jesus, and that's what. No, it's about, inspiring to live like Jesus. And, you talk about Jesus, he was all about giving. He's all about helping. And that's the whole point of mission trips. There's a lot of mission trips here in Campbell County. Like you got the Shepherd's Home. There's a thing up in Jellicoe. I can't remember the name of it, that helps young men battling addiction, ex-felons. There's a lot of programs going out there trying to help. So once again, I hear what you're saying. You're saying caps at this point. I get what you're saying, but when you talk about mission trips, people talk about all these things. There's a lot that goes into that, and it's not just a Joel Osteen book rally. You know what I mean? It's not. That's not what it is all the time.
His entire platform is buy my book. So
yeah. We're really helping out Africa with where homosexuality is illegal in the majority of African countries, and you can get the death penalty for homosexuality in Sudan, Nigeria, and Somalia, I think.
Well,
Somalia.
Once again, he's not there to legislate. He was there in South Sudan to help a particular village that was ravaged by civil war, and he did that, and he preached Christ.
I think a distinction here is in order. No one is attacking the good that churches do.
But my point is when you put caps, my point to Tom's point is when you put caps and when you start, the government adds another layer of what they can say
I agree.
is morality and not what's taxable and what's not, adds it's like red flag laws. Well, it's just a whole nother that they can make up what they want to say. And, then that's something Republicans and Democrats are guilty of, in my opinion.
So what is...
I couldn't agree more.
What are
we had in the 19...
What do you got, Tom?
Well, in the 1980s, you had conservatives railing against the National Endowment for the Arts because the endowment was giving money to things that conservatives found to be morally objectionable. And my solution and my answer to that was, good, then let's get rid of the NEA altogether. Let's let the market decide, because what happens is we get the government deciding what is art and what is not. You get governments deciding that this is literature and this is not. I should be free to deem as art anything that I choose. I should be free to deem as literature anything that I choose. I should be free to deem as religious participation that which I choose. I will let my feet do the voting. I will let the marketplace sort things out. I don't need Big Brother telling me that this is an acceptable form of religion and this is not, that this is an acceptable form of art and this is not, and that this is an acceptable form of literature or music and this is not. So this just goes to my fundamental core, philosophically and politically. I don't need the government to tell me what I can and cannot listen to, or how I should spend my money, or how I should live my life. I want the government to get its hands off of me, and life works a whole lot better when that happens. And I think everyone should have that protection.
I think that kind of ties in with like Chipper Gore and that whole push.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that
Jello Biafra absolutely slaughtered her, by the way. Just, if anyone has never, if you're curious, go back and watch Tipper Gore debate Jello Biafra from the dead Kennedys. That was interesting.
I'll have to check that out. What you got, Early? I know you're over there.
My thoughts on what? Protecting culture in society? Like, I don't know.
Did I jump around too much? I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, no. It's fine. Like, I'm not sure how the market is going to decide, what's important to history culturally. Like, I think there are people that devote their lives to that, go get their doctorates in fine arts and everything else. They might be able to appreciate a little bit better what should be valued throughout history, but that's just me. I think we all are part of the social contract. We came out of barbarism, just being animals, and came together and built society, and we built a government to protect us and to regulate everything else. Like, to throw all that away is to regress socioculturally. So that's my thoughts on all that. I don't think it's ever a good thing if we go back. Right? We should always be moving forward as a society.
So how does that relate, in banning any type? Because I tend to agree with Tom on the point that it's a slippery slope once you let any type of legislation in to tax or cap or deem what is taxable or capable by a government. Because as you know, they're good at protecting their own interests, because there is an interest when you bring in that much money. So what do you mean that?
I mean, let the people decide.
Let the people decide, and
yeah,
what respect?
How they feel about it in electing the representatives and everything else. I think we definitely need to have election reform, and the winner-take-all system, because it limits how people are represented. The two-party system is nothing but harmful. It protects special interest groups that are just able to pay their way to having everything. I mean, that's free market. Free market is just, it's good that we have a free market now, but if it's completely unregulated, you just have corporations that take over everything and corrupt government. And we're looking at that today. That's what putting handcuffs on government regulation does.
Handcuffs on government regulation.
Limiting them, tying their hands behind their back. Like with the EPA, you're saying, you were saying the other day how ineffective it was. And it's like, yeah, if you got the whole agency and put a person in charge of the agency that actively wants to get rid of it, of course its ability to function and do its job is going to be affected.
So in context of that, I'm in favor of protecting the environment. What I was saying is that respective states probably could prove to be better at identifying environmental hazards and legislating and regulating their own state's environmental protection agencies according to what that state produces. What they outsource more is kind of what I was putting on to that. And that
we had the Articles of Confederation. Like, we had a weak central government, we had strong states' rights, and it proved out to be a disaster. There was rebellions immediately. Jay's Rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion, and Washington was like, no, this sucks. We need a strong central government, and we need the states to fall in line.
Yeah, but central government is morphed into something completely different than what you're talking about, than what Washington was talking about. Completely different.
Absolutely.
What do you got on that, Tom? You're the special guest. I'm not going to put you over.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that obviously that was a particular kind of situation, but I don't think Washington ever, if he were to come back and look at the absolute monster that the federal government has become, I don't think there's any way in the world that he would be in favor of what the federal government is. To the point about pollution, let us not forget that, as it turns out, one of the biggest polluters in this country is our state and federal government agencies and institutions. This is the fox guarding the hen house. So the federal government has an EPA. It has standards, but yet the government does not have to abide by any of them. It was a government that wrecked the water in Flint, Michigan. So the idea that government is the solution here, and that's something that Washington would be comfortable with, I think is not accurate in my humble opinion.
What you got on that, Hal?
Nothing. I was just listening to this. I agree with him. That,
He's an anarchist.
I agree with both of you guys that, the government really isn't anything like it was. But I don't know. I was just here for the church talk.
I mean, I'm in total agreement that Washington would be horrified, but I'm not sure it would be at the size of government more so than having a two-party system. Like, he was totally opposed to parties, and he specifically was against special interest groups and corporations. We didn't have like corporations at the time, but like large businesses just buying their way into government and completely corrupting it from within. He would be 100% horrified.
You know who's not bought?
Not sure what.
You know who's not bought? The Libertarian Party.
There you go. We are the only party that actively and that really honestly holds to this. Both the Republicans and Democrats are bought and paid for by their corporate cronies. Crony capitalism is alive and well in the Republican and Democrat parties, but the only alternative to that is in the Libertarian Party and in Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen.
We need a modern-day Teddy Roosevelt to just go in with a hammer and just wreck everything, just mix it up.
We've got her. Her name is Jo Jorgensen.
Yeah, she's the one you're looking for.
No, I don't think so.
Why? Tell me why. We're just going with the conversation.
My ideological views are, I wouldn't say 100%. I would say like maybe 50% different from the standard libertarian view. We agree on a lot of things.
It's the platform.
Myself and Josh, the guest last week, we agreed on almost everything until the end. So there's a lot I have in common. There's a lot I don't. Probably more that I don't. And well, I don't know. It's about equal.
I guess my question at this point, if we're going to have a philosophical discussion about either voting for the lesser two evils or the Libertarian Party, or where this discussion has taken us, my question would be, why not go with somebody that is actually pointing out the crony capitalism, that's actually saying, the war on drugs is a failure. Like, no one will talk about that. And I think it's pretty cool with Spike Cohen's last, video he did. He's able to kind of penetrate that wall of PC political correctness and, kind of talk to young Democrats about, there's a third option. It's not left, right anymore. There's goal too. And, I think that's the issue, is that we get so hung up on everything that I think there's something to be said for a party that's trying to come up and express its views, and it's taking people reasonable people from both parties. Like, for example, this show, like we don't have a lot of viewers. We're small, we're humble, but this was kind of started because reasonable people on both parties wanting to have a discussion, and here we are. And
I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
If Bill Weld, your former vice presidential candidate,
Right.
was the nominee for the Libertarian Party today, he would have my vote. I love Bill Weld.
I could see where you would have. What do you got on that, Tom? I'm talking about libertarianism, and you're the actual professional here about it. Tell me what you got.
Well, you're absolutely right in that we have this meta-narrative of left-right, Republican, Democrat, and it's being fostered by the media that is dominated. Some media outlets for the left, for Democrats, one or two perhaps for the right and for Republicans. But because of crony capitalism and because the media scratches the back of the two old stale parties, and the two old stale parties scratch the back of the media, and their cronies in the media, it drowns out the libertarian voice, which is the true alternative, which is where I think a lot of people find themselves once they hear the platform, once they hear that your First Amendment rights should be yours at all times, that your Second Amendment rights should be yours and should not be infringed upon, that your Fourth Amendment rights, that everyone, regardless of their economic state, regardless of your family name, regardless of your lineage, regardless of your religion, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of what side of the tracks you come from, all the rights belong to all the people, all of the time. That's the Libertarian Party. That is not the party. That is not the Democratic Party. That is not the Republican Party. Only the Libertarian Party believes this. Only the Libertarian Party stands up for this. Joe Biden is not going to stand up for this. Donald Trump is not going to stand up for this. Jo Jorgensen will stand up for this. She is the only real choice come this November.
What do you got on that?
I'm probably writing in Bernie.
You what? You want to ride in Bernie?
I'm probably going to write in Bernie. Fuck it.
Joe Biden, he's gonna steal all your melanin if you don't vote for him.
He might do it.
That's what he said. That's not what he said, but
Dude,
he might as well. Give it back. Give it back.
I've never seen a candidate in the primaries so aggressive with his supporters if they questioned him on anything.
Yeah.
Like, people will be like, hey, you said this, but, what about this? And he's just like, you shouldn't vote for me, buddy. Go vote for somebody else.
He wanted to fight
We're like, what? What are you talking about, bro? You don't want my vote?
That's that old
chasing off voters.
That's the Dixiecrat in him. He's a Dixiecrat. It's the Dixiecrat in him.
Yeah, he's from Connecticut. He's like blue blood Connecticut.
But they
like
have
New
Dixiecrats up there. There's Dixiecrats everywhere. There's still a lot of,
Me and my
they call them
do anything.
Copperheads. Copperhead Democrats. That do.
Yeah, like McClellan. That's what he is.
The amazing thing is how much Joe Biden and Donald agree. And back to the original issue that we talked about at the beginning. And, we had Donald Trump, posing in front of the church, holding up a Bible. And my friends on the left just absolutely lost their minds. And then Joe Biden comes out, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and said this: in our public schools, we need more teaching of faith in our public schools. We need to learn about Islam. We need to learn about all the theology of all confessional faiths. Excuse me?
No, we don't.
You want to do what? I mean, I understand that in
it's
the
gross
history
pandering.
and in
It's
social
gross
studies.
pandering.
Yeah, it's
gross
just
pandering.
And from what I understand, Joe Biden is a professing Catholic and is a devout Catholic, and his religion and his religion is entirely his business.
Yeah.
But for him to step in and say, and I say to all my left-leaning friends now, you cannot be upset at Trump now, because not only I'll see your photo op, your offensive photo op, and raise you with, let's turn public schools into schools of theology. Are you absolutely freaking kidding me? I can understand it from a social studies perspective. The Western civilization
Yeah.
contributions made by Christians and Hindus and Buddhists, but when you start getting into, we're going to look at
This specific faith.
catechesis.
I mean, I
to me, that goes
know.
beyond where public schools should go.
His statement was pretty vague, honestly. Like, if he's just saying like everybody should take a world religions class so we can not be such bigoted assholes all the time, I'm about it. But if
That's
he's
not
like,
what he
yes,
said.
we're gonna have
That's not what
every
he said.
single
Yeah.
religion going through, then yeah.
No,
That's terrible.
To be fair, he might not even know what he said. To be fair,
he's like, we're
He probably doesn't. In all honesty,
let's be
I don't even know where I am.
we're taking out lunch. It's gonna be communion.
I mean,
This isn't the barber shop.
and the fact this goes back to my point early is that I don't understand that we can sit here and joke about the DNC and the GOP candidates and be like, well, we can't vote for her anyways. What does it even matter? You're going to ride in Bernie. You know what I mean? If you vote for Joe, at least maybe one party will adopt our ideas. You know what I mean?
Is there still a petition
For
to have
Tennessee?
Joe Rogan moderate?
That would be interesting. I would love to see that.
He's just passing a blunt around.
Yeah. Have you ever done DMT?
What do you think a chimpanzee's stance on this would be?
And
Rip it apart.
Elon Musk is the guest moderator. You know what I mean?
No, I'm just saying, like, looking at what Joe, like, there's a chance. There's not zero chance that he won't try to fight Donald Trump. He called that one dude sedentary. It's like,
I mean, we're basically going down the road that the movie Idiocracy is anyways. I mean, fuck it. Let's just have a wrestling match or something to decide it all.
No,
Monster
we have a
truck.
third party. We have
Monster
a third
truck.
party. Come on.
Okay, last election cycle, the Libertarian Party actually had a huge chance because you had two legitimate politicians running for your party. Two former governors of U.S. states. One being the former governor of a very important state, right?
Yeah.
This election, I don't know. Your candidate, your nominee is
Say what you want to say.
kind of a lot. She's kind of a lot to handle for mainstream
How so?
America. She's extremely purist, where I'd say Gary Johnson and Bill Weld were more reasonable on a lot of issues. She's like down
Where is
for
she
like
unreasonable?
no.
Where is she unreasonable? Like, tell me specifically. Like, I want to hear this.
Early doesn't like guns, man.
I don't like guns.
It's that darn Bill of Rights that she wants to support. Man, that really ticks people off.
Let's start over. Let's get rid of all those other amendments and just go back to the original 10.
What about blowguns, Early? If you can hunt,
I don't know. I was in Iraq with a lunatic.
Kill him.
Which one?
I was in Iraq. This was my first tour.
Oh,
This
I wasn't
guy's
there.
name. Well, I shouldn't see his name.
No,
I shouldn't say
don't
his
say
name.
his
But
did he drop? Did he drop the 3-9 with me? Did I know him?
no, you didn't know him. Nobody knows him. He has a different name on Facebook now
Thank
too.
you for your service, Phil, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you for your service, Phil.
And
Gotta
Zeb.
do my part. Gotta do my part for imperialism.
No, I mentioned you too, Zeb.
No, I know, Tom. We're both. So context, how I know Early. When I would join the military, the Marines, I
picked on
dropped,
you.
and Early was a senior essentially, if you want to talk in like hazing terms, and and I was a junior. And anyways, Early was cool. He didn't really haze me that much, so it was all cool. You know,
That much.
it was fun. It was
Gotcha.
all good fun, you know. But no, we joke. No, we appreciate that, and that's another reason why I'm a big LP guy now. I'm tired of all the ongoing war. I'm just done with it. You know, I'm just. It's kind of,
you so much you turned into a libertarian.
yeah, you hate me to a libertarian. Look at that. But seriously, I'm tired of all the war. I think that there might be some, like Joe did a good job. Not your Joe, my Joe. She did a good job of explaining like how her term to veil it all over, be like Switzerland, neutral and armed. There'll be circumstances that she'll be privy to if she somehow won. You know, I'm going to vote for it, whatever y'all say.
I love that part of her platform, but she's a little bit too isolationist. Like, I'm a huge foreign policy guy. That's my whole interest. I follow foreign policy journals every day.
Right.
I love the fact that she's like, you know what, reduce arms. When we do, all of our international adversaries, they're going to drop their defense budget a little bit. It'll just be good for world peace. Like, it's a waste right now in this liberal world system that we have today, and not liberal in the American politics sense, but liberal in the international relations sense.
Is it even liberal in the international sense? Is it really that liberal? I mean, you got a thriving slave trade in Africa right now. Is it
That's
that
pretty liberal.
I mean, it's
No rules.
I'm saying, in the international relations sense, we live in a liberal world order, right? Where countries don't go to war with each other anymore because it's bad for business, fucks up global markets.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like one thing I say when people bring up war with China. You know, our GDPs are intertwined. So I understand what you're saying there. And I think I'm not going to disagree with you.
I'm just saying, I don't think we should be isolationist. I'm saying we should reduce defense spending across the board, but we should also be very pragmatic and very forward-thinking in trying to set up trade deals with other countries, trying to open borders, just trying to be active in international politics, like be on board with all the treaties. With the Paris Agreement, we were the one country that pulled out.
We got on that.
To be fair, libertarians agree with you, or you happen to agree with us. The way that you engage other countries is not with bullets, but with trade. You have the Republicans and Democrats who are protectionists and isolationists. Libertarians are not isolationists at all when it comes to engaging other countries. We believe that the way to achieve and to keep world peace is to keep free trade open with countries. But we have someone in the White House right now who doesn't believe that. If we vote for Joe Biden, we're going to have someone in the White House who does not believe that. The only person that is on the ballot that believes that is Joe Jorgensen.
I just thought libertarians would be skeptical at the creation of more NGOs and IGOs.
We don't want to be the world's policemen. We don't want to be constantly sending troops into harm's way where American interests are not, where we've not been attacked, we've not been provoked or anything like that. We're not into kingdom building or nation building or anything like that. We believe in a strong national defense so that if we are attacked, we can respond. But the best way to have a strong national defense is to bring our troops home. We don't need troops scattered all over the globe, itching for a fight. If someone picks a fight with us, we're going to fight back. But the best way is to not fight. The best way is to engage in trade and commerce with all who are willing to voluntarily engage in trade and commerce with us as the United States. That's the libertarian role.
Tom, let me ask you this real quick. How does the Libertarian Party feel the best way to unentangle ourselves from the quagmire we're already in without creating a power vacuum that destabilizes the entire Middle East? Well, it's already destabilized, but further destabilizing and getting all the people that helped us out over the past 20 years massacred.
Well, the problem is when you have, and I'm assuming you're talking about the Middle East. That sounds exactly like what you're describing.
Yes.
What you said is absolutely true. Whether we are there or not, unfortunately, it's broken, and the fact that we're there hasn't fixed anything. In fact,
Well,
you could make a reasonable argument that us being there has maybe hurt things. So maybe if we step back,
we broke it in the first place. We destabilized the entire region. I don't think that's a question.
It was a
at this
joint
point.
effort between us and Russia. Like, we kind of teamed up on that. That was like a Russian and American thing. Would you agree on that?
yeah, I don't think it was entirely our doing. Again, I think we found it's not like something just got broken in the 80s or in the 70s or in the 60s. We're talking about a region that has been at each other's throats for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Well,
That is not going to stop or start because of our presence. So therefore, the position of the Libertarian Party is, let's bring our troops home. It's not going to crumble. It's their circumstance to sort out, to figure out. Unfortunately, this is not a policy that is shared by either of the two old stale parties, because war and nation building is big for the military-industrial complex.
Sure.
I say we break that and get out.
That whole region was destabilized originally when we involved ourselves after World War I with the Sykes-Picot Agreement. I didn't mean we as in Americans specifically. I just meant the West.
The West, yeah.
The old colonial powers, especially. But I do think that further destabilization in Iraq and Afghanistan won't be just detrimental to us long term, but it will be detrimental to Europe with mass migration, especially with the whole climate issues we have going on these days, and people trying to find habitable regions. So I don't know. I'm very conflicted. I know we need to get out of there, but I'm not sure the best plan is just zipping everybody out 100%.
Well,
Can we agree?
Right overnight.
Go ahead, Tom. I'm going to throw some on it.
Sure. Can we agree that it's an experiment worth trying? Because we haven't tried it.
Well, in Iraq, we did exactly that, and then ISIS just took over the entire country, and all the people that we worked for were either shot or had to go into hiding, like the Iraqi army and the Iraqi police.
So
when they took over city after city that we liberated in the first place.
Right. And no, I understand. I sympathize with your point on, bringing back like interpreters. I think let's narrow it down so we put like a human face or a human element to it. Like, interpreters are specifically targeted by Taliban, ISIL, ISIS, and other Mujahideen type organizations.
It's a travesty we don't bring them all back.
I agree. So these are two things that I'll say that Joe Jorgensen said that could probably intertwine, and her being reasonable and the Libertarian Party reasonable. I'm gonna go on a limb and say this might be where the conversation is, if she was privy to certain intel, that she said specifically that she would pull out by whatever intel allowed her, what was need to be there. So she said there's obviously, if we're talking seriously, if we're going to support her and she gets in by a record hot set, let's say record people come out to vote, more people ever have in the past 50 years, and she wins. She said that she's not going to just pull out indiscriminately, that she's going to look out on basis, and she's also pretty liberal in her views on migration and how to fix to approach that. I would say she would probably try to create a program that brought over interpreters or whoever that you're speaking of that helped the United States military in these times of war. But to Tom's point, it's something that is just swept under the rug by the establishment. They don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? And there's also popular generals that don't really agree with pulling out. And my point is that at some point we have to realize that we've created far more enemies than we have friends, and that we need to pull back significantly to recognize that and comprehend that as a nation and fix the quagmire, as you would say, that we have in the Middle East. I don't think she's saying that we're just going to pull out altogether unilaterally. But her point is that I'm going to fight to pull out. Someone fact check me? Didn't Trump try to pull out and he was blocked by both sides of?
Bush had an exit strategy for his second term, and then Obama did. He ran on pulling us out of Iraq and Afghanistan, and then he did his second term, and then Trump did. We're just in this impossible situation. I don't know what the solution is. I don't have one. Maybe having peacekeeping troops come in from either NATO or the UN.
Privatizing
maybe how would you privatize that?
How? Blackwater? I mean, look at Fallujah.
Oh yeah, look at Blackwater. They're a great example of how privatizing works out.
Well, they're Academy now, right? They're Academy.
Dynacore.
Yeah,
like off the books war crimes, no problem. Dynacore, Blackwater. That was a great situation, Zeb.
It's not a war crime if you don't know about it.
One thing is certain that the policies of Bush, of Obama, the policies of the old stale parties have failed us, and because of that, we have had to bury far too many soldiers at Arlington. Far too many American families have lost brave women and men in uniform who were sent into places that they should never have been sent. And let me just clarify, when I say pull out, I don't mean to do so in the reckless kind of ways that have happened, that have been destabilizing. There's a right way to do it, but I don't think we've given doing it the right way and pulling back in the right way. I don't think we've given it the fair shake, to be perfectly honest. And I don't think history gives us an example where we really did it in the proper way. It was a mess before we got there. It could potentially be a mess after we leave. But one thing is we have to try, and we have to protect our interests first, and not the interests of the military-industrial complex, not the interests of the two old stale parties who want to give us basically the same regurgitation, just one has an elephant and the other has a donkey. We've got to try a different approach, and that different approach is the Libertarian Party. It is the Libertarian approach. It is Jorgensen Cohen. That's the new approach that we need to try.
Did you watch that video that I sent you of Cohen's take on going out with the protesters and actually talking to them and having discourse? Did you watch that, Tom?
I did, and I thought it was an excellent video, and I support Cohen 100%. We need to differentiate between the movement and the organization. There are people in the Black Lives Matter movement who agree with us as libertarians that due process rights do belong to all people, that we need to end the failed war, that we need to end qualified immunity, that we need to end the criminal justice industrial complex.
Early.
And
Early, are you playing a game? Early.
No.
Are you playing a game? Oh, that was
No.
I'm sorry, I blamed you. It's totally Jason. I yelled at you. I'm sorry. See,
I'm sitting here minding my own business.
I'm not sorry at all.
You just don't like liberals. Though.
It's not true.
This
That's
isn't
not
a
true.
tag.
I feel the
love
bias
this
coming
guy.
through right
I
now.
love this guy.
Yeah.
He's great.
That's twice. That's
Oh.
twice.
I'm being persecuted.
All right, back to you, Tom.
We're going back to that.
How can I top that? But no, I absolutely agree with our VP candidate there. Too many people conflate the movement with a couple of people that are in a formal organization, and of course that's the meta narrative that the Republican and Democrat cronies in the media want to portray, because they want to convince and brainwash the American people that Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen are not a serious candidacy, that they're not serious, that the Libertarian Party isn't serious. And I urge everyone, don't fall for that narrative. You're eating exactly what the Republicans and Democrats want to feed you. And so, yeah, I did watch the video. I agree 100%. And look what he was doing. He was engaging people.
Yeah, talking to people. Yeah.
He was talking to people. Oh, my goodness, what an idea.
Yeah.
Hey, that
Same.
just might work. That works when we talk about when we're talking about protesters. That works when we're talking about our enemies. That works when we're talking about China, Russia. We talk to them. That doesn't mean you're weak for doing that. Again, no one's saying that dismantled our military at home in case we're attacked. And so we're in the case of Black Lives Matter, the movement, or Antifa, we can have a discussion. There's a reason they're out there, and we need to understand why. Let's have a discussion. And it just so happens, like I say, that there are people that are part of the movement called Black Lives Matter that believe things that we as libertarians hold dear.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to have a discussion. I'm willing to talk.
I think that's 100% on, and like something we were talking about here at the open table, like why I kind of stepped back from that conversation, because maybe I come off too brass. I don't know, but I like the fact that Spike is out there engaging that conversation with that young demographic of voters and people, and making them realize to what you're saying is that, there's a lot of what you're saying. And in some groups like East Tennessee, Clinton, and Oak Ridge, a really good example of peaceful protesters saying reasonable things, saying factual things. And, you could have a discussion and talk with those people. And I like the fact that he's breaking that barrier in some of these places you can't have that discussion. And people are turning on, and hopefully the Libertarian Party becomes something recognizable to somebody. And hopefully that somebody is voters and young voters this November, that we can talk about this, and I applaud Spike's aggressiveness in doing that. What do you got on that?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I kind of want to leave on a little lighthearted, because we've had a pretty heated night in some cases. So before we wrap up, I want to ask everyone their opinion. How tall is Ben Shapiro? I'm saying 5'4". It's up for debate. Apparently that's a real thing. Like, he says he's 5'9", and
there's no way.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm calling foul.
He stood next to the Zodiac killer, Ted Cruz, and I'm pretty sure he's like 5'8".
Whoa.
And he was
Yeah, he was
like
towering over him.
Yeah, he made Ted Cruz look like a big man.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll give him 5'5".
Yeah, maybe
How
he's
is he-
hunched over a little bit.
I'm going to give him 5'8". I'm going to give him 5'8".
You're gonna say he's 5'8".
I'm going to give it to him, man. I'm going to concede it. I think I like the guy.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
that's what I'm
he's
saying.
probably got the Tom
Yeah.
Cruise thing going on, or
So
he's
he's
always in lifts, and he's always got the camera angles,
Yeah, it was
like sitting on a
taking
stack of
Yeah, like
dictionaries.
if you ever watch him, he always has the camera like angled up towards the stage, so he looks bigger. He's
know.
tiny,
Yeah.
man.
He does have some good things to say when he agrees with libertarians.
Yeah.
So I'll give him 5'7.5".
5'7.5". I got 5'8".
I think-
Yeah, because he's wearing
5'5".
heels probably. So
I'm saying 5'4".
5'4". Okay.
I'm also saying he's definitely got an obsession with AOC. I know he's probably not going to admit that.
I like the lightheartedness. This is something I was thinking about earlier when we were talking. What if COVID didn't hit? One concert you can only pick. Which concert would you that was already planned that was going to happen on the tour this summer? Which one would you have gone to?
Me?
Yeah, all of us.
I don't know. Black Dahlia Murder.
Is that the one were they
I don't
touring
know
this
that they had
summer?
anything planned. I'm sure they did, but
So Black Dahlia
yeah.
Murder.
I'm just putting one out there.
I miss live music. You know, it
Yeah.
fucking sucks. How about you, Tom? What's one concert you probably would want to see this summer? Since we can go, we could talk about it.
you know, it seems like a million years ago since it was canceled, and I'm going to date myself here, but I'm a child of the '80s, so there was, and my wife was really into this. See, there was Def Leppard, Poison. I can't
Was
remember
it
all
the
of
crew
them.
was with them?
Yeah, Motley Crue was in that too. We were wanting to go see that, and I'm really, you know, I missed out when Def Leppard and Journey came around a couple of years ago. My wife got to see it, so I was looking forward to it, but not to be apparently.
You weren't a punk rocker in the 80s?
You know, sadly enough, as punk in my, I guess, circle of friends, as punk rock as it got was Def Leppard, unfortunately. So make of that what you will.
How about you, Early? Who you would have seen this summer?
I really wanted to go to a Leningrad concert. It's a Russian punk rock band.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the States, but they've transitioned over to a lot more pop these days, but I'm just a huge fan of that band.
I'm torn, man. I was is either going to be Ginger or Deftones with Gojira. I probably would end up copying Walker and going to Deftones Gojira, whatever. But Ginger's, I love Ginger.
Gojira's interesting. Their lyric content is really interesting.
Excuse me.
Do you like Ginger?
Not really.
Nope. Gosh, you're crazy.
It's just butt rock, dude. Like, you know,
You're
it's
crazy,
just what it
man.
sounds like to me.
She's
Once
so
you cross that
awesome.
like grindcore like noise,
Dude, she's a
threshold,
phenomenal.
it's hard to be like, yeah, that's really solid.
I can't believe she's on. Anyways, so I guess are we coming to a wrapping up, pal? Are we wrapping up?
Yeah, rapping in the
We're wrapping
old
it up,
dirty
guys.
South.
I want to thank both of you all coming on. Tom Campbell, Phillip Early. Since you're our special guest, Tom, and Early's going to be kind of like a permanent installation as our residential liberal. We're going to let you have the final words on tonight there, Tom.
Well, I just obviously I want people to check out www.lp.org and just head over to Google if you haven't already, and just type in Joe Jorgensen or hit the help me out here. I've lost.
There's LPT.
I've lost our website.
LPTN.org.
LPTN.org, but JO 2020.
Yep.
Head over to that website, check out Joe Jorgensen, and see for yourself that there is an alternative. You do not have to accept the status quo. You do not have to accept the old, stale, tired parties whose time has come and gone. And it is time to make that ending for the two old, stale parties a reality. by a new voice. It's your time, because all the rights belong to all the people all the time. And let me just say that what an honor it is, and a privilege and a pleasure to be part of the open table. What you guys are doing with the with this dialogue is outstanding, and thank you for your voice. It's just it's an amazing thing, and I appreciate what you guys do week in and week out. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Tom,
Thank
we
you, man.
appreciate the always, man. Always super good to have him on. You know, I think it turned out to be a good conversation, guys. What do you think? What do you think, Early?
Yeah, I thought that was great. We had some funny moments, and I think we learned a lot. It was definitely a lot more fireworks this time between myself and the Libertarians than it was my first time on.
But yeah, Josh Shackle. So last time,
Josh took. Yeah, I listened, and I was so disappointed in Josh. I wanted him to give a little more business. So you know, I had to bring it this time, so to make up for it.
Perfect.
That's great, and that's what I love about, you know, cycling this discussion. And you know, for all the listeners, the live listeners we've got, and people that will watch this video in the future, we just want to encourage you to like and share. And you know, honestly, it's the open table. Something we talked about earlier is we have a lot of people debating back and forth on the internet throughout the day. We want to invite people to, if they have something they want to say, bring it to the open table. This is literally an open table. If you're a Trump supporter, come on in and tell me why you're supporting Trump. You know, you could even throw us topics that you want to specifically talk about. And same vice versa. If you're a Biden supporter, come on the show and tell me why I should vote for a guy that tries to fight iron workers.
Supporter, I'd really like to hear from you, because I've never met one.
But it's insane. He looks like he could win. It's utter insanity.
He's literally going to win, because everybody is so disgusted by Trump that they're going to vote for Biden.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how Trump won in the first place. Everybody on the other side of the aisle didn't want to see Hillary Clinton as president.
That's how they win. That's how the duopoly wins, though. But we can.
Right.
Yes,
this is terrible.
Absolutely.
It sucks.
This is terrible for American politics. Like, we're literally voting for people just to pick the lesser of two evils now. Election reform.
When you vote for the lesser of evils, you're still voting for evil. Don't vote for evil, vote Joe. That's the answer. You do not have to vote for evil. A vote for the lesser of two evils is still a vote for evil.
Fair enough.
It's not wrong. All right, we're out of here, Facebook. Thank you for coming on with us. Like and share. If you want to talk some trash to us and say that we're wrong, please feel free to tell me how. Love to have you on the show. Peace out.